Okay, so this is day one of putting myself out there. Because this morning a friend of mine, he said, Kate, it doesn't matter how you do it, just bloody do it. Because I was overthinking Substack, and I'm writing a book at the moment. And I'm also sharing this understanding because why would I keep it to myself? When it changes everything, it makes life so much easier. And it all started for me, the catalyst was my daughter. When she was about 13, she started to struggle with anxiety, and she kind of went from just, enjoying life and, I don't know, nothing particular, to she stopped going to school. She, everything became a challenge, going on the bus, seeing her friends. She started to get really lost inside this story, and she would be just full of overwhelm. And what I did was, guess what? I did the same. I completely got lost as well. I got lost in the overwhelm. I went into immediate fixing. Everyone around me also went into a lot of fixing, and everyone was really well intentioned, but they all got lost in the sideshow, which was the anxiety. And there was all these sort of coping mechanisms, and she needs to do this, and you need to take her to that, and she needs to, and just none of it even touched the sides. And I'm actually quite grateful that she was really stubborn. She wasn't having any of it. She was like, you are all barking up the wrong tree. None of this is making sense. You're all trying to get me to change my thinking by thinking more, and it didn't make sense what we were all doing. And then I guess what I was doing was I was kind of filling this space with fear, like so much fear. And it was really tough. It was lonely. It was when someone you love starts to struggle, whatever it is they're struggling with, it's your world kind of gets very small and quite exhausting as well. You're constantly trying to keep someone else afloat. And until I realized what I was doing, and instead of filling this space with fear, I realized I didn't need to fill the space at all. I connected with something that I never was aware of. I became present. I became aware of who I am beyond my story, of who I am beyond my experience. And it was crazy because I started to see, like, when I was lost in my own thinking, in my own story, when I was lost in my head and going into the overwhelm and how it wasn't useful. And then I would come back into this completely different space. And the response I would get from my daughter was, completely different. She would start to listen, and she would calm down. And, I realized that I just began to trust that it wasn't about me giving the answers and fixing, and it was trusting in this space, in this quiet space of wisdom, because I realized that she also has it within her. I just hadn't seen it. It's just become hidden. And the more I found myself talking to her from this quiet space of being, the when everything just is, when everything is suspended, when you're not in the future and you're not in the past and you're not trying to fix anything, and you're just completely in the moment, and you talk to someone from that space and you connect with them beyond their story, and then they do the same, and everything changes. And so I'm going to leave it there, because this is my first little video, and I just said that I would do it today, so I am doing it. And then tomorrow I will come back and, it feels funny. I just feel like I'm talking to myself, but I'm talking to you, whoever you are. If you found this video and if it's making sense to you, it's, you might want to come on this journey and just see where it brings you, because I am telling you life does not need to be as hard as we make it. I made it really hard. I was a real pain in the arse, actually. And then I saw what I was doing, and I kind of came out of it and connected with this difference, and everything changed. Everything changed. I mean, my daughter would say, if I say, you know, what happened and how did you come through it? You know, she's 20 now, and she would say, well, for a start, you changed. Because I did. I was a real worrier. I didn't even know I was a worrier, but I just thought that was normal. But yeah, I was a real worrier. And I got very lost in it until I didn't. And then, weirdly, and then I'm going to finish, but I did this podcast and I spoke at this conference about this. And these two people turned up randomly. There was a guy called Gary, who was in his 70s and lovely, lovely man. And he was struggling with, because his wife had depression, and she, well, I'll tell you about this another time. But anyway, he turned up at my door. And then so did Kelly, who was kind of similar to me. She had a daughter, kind of the same age as my daughter, who hadn't left her bedroom for a year. And they both randomly got in touch. And I started sharing my journey and all of this, started sharing it with them. And I couldn't believe it. They were trusting, they were listening, and I was watching them just change in front of me. And I realized that it wasn't that they were trusting me, it's that they were trusting in this space of wisdom, which they had forgotten, that had become so hidden to them in their panic and their, you know, in their fear, in their complete sort of, you know, when we're trying to change our experience. And then when we fall out of the experience altogether and we find this space, everything changes. And it's not just me. And I've seen that now in people around me. And so I know it's true for everyone. Anyone who gets curious, anyone who listens with an open mind. I'm getting tongue twisted, so I'm going to go now. And that's the end of day one. And I'll be back tomorrow. And I might see you then. Bye.